Good afternoon. I am going to share the screen now. And I Can you see it? Good. I apologize for the mess on the back, but we are moving, so my entire house is in boxes right now, and we try to cover them, but when you pinned it, the screen got bigger. Okay, so welcome. Thank you for being here. This class is Annotated Translation of a Baronial Award into Early Modern Spanish. I am Baroness Elieth de Salazar. You can call me Ellie. As I said before, this is an annotated translation of a Baronial Award. The name of the award is Ostrom Australis. And this is an award from the Barony of the Citadel of the Southern Pass, which is located in El Paso, Texas, and we belong to the Kingdom of the Outlands. This is the actual award. The calligraphy and illumination was made by me, and it was beautifully framed by the wife of the recipient. And I am super flexible, so whenever you want to ask a question or a comment, please feel free. So in translation, we talk about L1 and L2, language 1 and language 2. The language 1 was the standard modern English. That's the original text. And in the Outlands, I understand that in some kingdoms, you can write your own words, the writing, the wording, but in the Outlands, we have a pretty fixed text. There are versions, like line 1 has version A and version B, so you can choose between A and B, but you have to choose one of those. You cannot write your own writing, your own wording. So pretty much I put together the award in modern Spanish based on what I'm already given. And L2 would be the translation, the early modern Spanish translation. Early modern Spanish is also called classical Spanish or golden age Spanish or castellano medio, and it's used between the end. It was used between the end of the 15th century and the end of the 17th century. Oh, my niece is here. And so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to read the English, what I put together with the different A and B's that we got. Read, or does anybody want to read it for me? No? Would you like to read it? No? I don't mean to put anybody on the spot. Okay, I'll read it. Greetings to all in singular from the Baron and Baroness of the Citadel of the Southern Pass, Tariq and Elieth. My husband and I were Baron and Baroness for 4 years in the Citadel. Whereas it has come to our attention that in this case is the recipient's name is Jose, so it would be Senor Jose. He goes by Senor instead of Lord, and that Senor Jose has, through his diverse efforts, given great and excellent service to the barony and populace of the Citadel of the Southern Pass. It is our pleasure to admit him to the Order of the Astrum Australis. We hereby convey unto Senor Jose the right to bear the badge of the order, to wit azure, 2 piles inverted, or in chief a compass star elongated to base argent, so that all may know of the service that our beloved Barony, to the service of to our beloved Barony. All this we do confirm by our hands. This, I don't remember the day of January. Annotated, I don't remember the name, the year being 2018 in the Gregorian. We'll read the translation after we talk about all this. So that was the text that I worked with. The translation is the result of extensive research to verify that all the words chosen were actually used in the 16th century. I used two dictionaries mainly. Diccionario de Autoridades, Dictionary of Authorities, which was written between the 1726 and 1739. I know you're thinking that's out of period, but give me 1 minute. So this, the Dictionary of Authorities is the first Castilian dictionary produced, edited, and published by the Real Academia Española. The Real Academia Española is a body, an entity that we have in Spanish that safeguards the correct use of Spanish. So you guys don't have that in English, but in Spanish we have an entity saying, no, you can say this, or yes, you can say that. Which is grammatical and what is not grammatical. They would tell you, they're the ones in charge of saying what is and what is not grammatical. It was started in 1713 at the request of Juan Manuel Fernandez Pacheco, Marquis of Villena, and for the purpose, and I'm going to read the quotation, for the purpose of fixing the words. Fixing, this is very interesting because that's not the purpose now. Fixing the words and terms of the Castilian language to ensure its utmost property, elegance, and purity. It started being like that. It started being like the authorities saying you can't do that, and what we speak in Castilian Spanish is what it's the right thing. But with the years, it has changed, and they accept more and more things that are the Spanish from Latin America, from the colonies. So since language, I know language moves, language changes, but it doesn't change, it didn't change as rapidly as fast before. So I would say it is safe to assume that the words recorded in this dictionary were being used in the 16th century. They didn't have an internet. They didn't have how fast language is changing with internet and with social media right now. So I would say it's safe to assume that those words in this dictionary were being used in the 16th century. The second dictionary I used was DICA 15, DICA 15, Diccionario del Castellano del siglo XV, Dictionary of the Spanish. Oops, sorry. I'm trying to move the pictures of us. Dictionary of the Spanish of the 15th century of the Crown of Aragon. This dictionary was prepared by a group of linguists. I'm not even going to read the name because it's in Catalan. So they're from the University of Barcelona to analyze the Spanish used in the Crown of Aragon in the 15th century. So this one for sure is, we know that whatever it's recorded there, it's going to be used in the 15th century. It was presented in 2013. So I use these dictionaries over period texts because number one, the sources are very reliable. I mean, the Real Academia Española is the authority in Spanish. So, and the other one is a very reliable source as well. The section on heraldry was consulted with two experienced SCA heralds, Baron Bruce Draconoris and Master Christopher Devereux. And this translation was an exercise, a very exciting and challenging exercise due to the amount of research required. I have to mention that in mundane life, I am a translator, and I've been translating professionally for over 30 years, almost 30 years. So I started the project like, oh, this is gonna be a piece of cake. But it turned out to be extremely challenging. So what is an annotated translation? I'm gonna, according to Koskinen, it's based on notes. Let me see where I can put the pictures of our pictures because it keeps being on my text. It's based on notes and observations which the translator writes down while in the process of the translation, concentrating mainly on problematic passages or, depending on the approach, passages with interesting features relating to the topic of the project. So pretty much is I chose this word, or I chose this structure because, and you give the explanation why you chose that. That is an annotated translation. We are going to, I made an annotated entry for every single word and every single choice, but we're going to see about 10. So what is Castellano Medio, or early modern Spanish? It's a variant of Spanish used between the end of the 15th century and the end of the 17th century, as I said before. And it's defined by a number of philological and grammatical changes between medieval Spanish and modern Spanish. It's a very interesting period for Spanish because it's when the colonies were starting to influence the Spanish of the peninsular Spanish. So that's when it started, the differences. And that probably that's why the person that wanted the Marquise, that's probably when he wanted to purify. He wanted to have a dictionary to have a pure Spanish, because at that time they were already getting a lot of influence from the colonies. I chose this this period Spanish because, one, it's easier for current Spanish speakers to understand, and still being within period. Early modern Spanish was challenging enough. I don't know if I would have been able to do medieval Spanish successfully. So the methodology. Oh, I have to say that this class is based on a paper I wrote. So I translated the document, I wrote a paper, and this class is the product of the paper. So I translated the document into the text into modern Spanish first to capture the meaning, and then I localized it into early modern Spanish. I verified the use of all the words in the dictionary of authorities, and then some of the words I was able to verify, most of the words actually, in the 15th century Spanish dictionary. most of the words. Some of the words I also verified in period texts. That was not my preferred source, because in one, finding original text is different, but I mean original, not transcriptions, but original text, because I need to see exactly how they spelled it, if they spell it with an accent or with capitals, and most of the transcriptions don't pay attention to that. So it's probably somebody transcribing and thinking modern Spanish, and they change certain things that were not like that. So I preferred sources like the dictionaries, where because those are people, professionals, that they know what they're doing. Okay, so we're going to start with the first one. The interesting things, and this is going to be the format always, we're going to see the original, the translation, and the justification. The original: greetings to all in singular from the Baron and Baroness of the Citadel of the Southern Pass. So some of the entries you're not going to see in the justification, because those are not the ones that we're going to discuss. I just put the ones that we're going to discuss here. So the first two, in these two, we're going to see, and the first one is paso. In Spanish, modern Spanish, you spell paso with one S. We don't have double S. So it's important to recreate that. You need to copy both S's. You have to add the double S here. And that was verified in the Diccionario de Autoridades. Then the other one is sud. Sud, so pretty much these are just spelling differences. Sud in a modern Spanish, you spell it with R instead of a D at the end. The only way that you can spell it with a D is when it's part of another word, like Sudamerica. And both Sudamerica and Sudamerica, with an R and with a D, both are accepted. So that's the only way that you can have the D in modern Spanish. Yet in early modern Spanish, you had to have the D, as you can see in the Dictionary of Authorities. In this example, we're going to talk about the copulative conjunction, and, or e. So Tariq and Eliet, Tariq e Eliet. What is interesting on this one is that I decided to use E instead of E. Why? I mean the letter Y. No, I'm not asking the question why. This copulative conjunction denotes addition and has undergone several changes with time. It started as et from Latin, and later on evolved to E, and then to I, and much later to the current I, Y. The form E was the common copulative conjunction during the Middle Ages, while Y was not introduced until the end of the 16th century. All the references and all the bibliographies you're going to find in the paper. I'm going to post the link where you can have the paper and this presentation, and I'll post it at the end in the chat. So we can verify that E is actually used, so that's why I chose E. What is interesting on the next case is whereas por ende. Here I verified it again in the Dictionary of Authorities, and it is there, so I could safely use it. The interesting thing about this one is that sometimes it will be spelled with one word, or sometimes it will be just a phrase, a prepositional phrase. So I chose a prepositional phrase because that's how I found it in the Dictionary of Authorities. probably what happened was that at some point it was spelled with two words, one word, and then it was spelled in two words, but there was no way for me to verify, so I chose what the Dictionary of Authorities was giving me. The next example, the next entry, is whereas it has come to our attention that blank has, through her diverse efforts given, for the translation we're going to have, por ende advertimos que vuesa merced. What is interesting in this example is that I chose, instead of using this his, her, I wanted, my whole purpose in this translation was to make it sound period, to make it sound regal. Okay, so to make it sound regal, so that it, because it's an award given by a noble, so I wanted to transcribe that feeling. And so I would put like little details like this. I could have just translated that literally, but I chose to add vuesa merced, which is in will be your mercy or your grace, instead of the possessive pronoun. And so that's how I ended up with por ende advertimos que vuesa merced. And it's vuesa merced instead of vuestra merced, because in modern Spanish you hear vuestra merced, but in early modern Spanish it's vuesa merced, again with the double S. So I took a little bit of liberty here as a translator. Feel free to ask or comment whenever you want. The next entry would be to the barony and populace of the Citadel of the Southern Pass. So we have Baronía, a la Baronía de la Ciudadela del Paso Sud y sus habitantes. What I wanted to talk about here is how Baronía, it doesn't have an accent. Modern Spanish, it has the accent, while in the early modern Spanish, it doesn't have the accent. So that's why I didn't want to use other sources, because I didn't know, I wasn't sure that other sources were going to recreate those details, like having an accent or not having an accent. So if it's somebody that doesn't have the knowledge and is transcribing, if they may transcribe it with the accent or without the accent. The other case that I wanted to talk about here is habitantes. I gave myself a little more freedom here. Instead of writing literally the translation for populace, I chose inhabitants. And again, it's in the dictionary of the 15th century Spanish. Okay, in this entry, we are gonna talk about two things. It is our pleasure to admit him or her to the order of the Austrum Australis. Nos complace admitir a cuan fiel súdito a la orden del Austrum Australis. So these indirect objects, him and her, I didn't want to translate them as such. You could translate them in different ways. You can add the le, admitir le, but I didn't want to use that because el leísmo, le is an interesting case, because in some countries they don't use le, or they overuse le, so, or they use it as something else. So I didn't want to get into that, and then it's attached to female and male, so I didn't want to get into that, because I wanted this to be a blank. So anybody could use it, and so we don't know if the recipient is going to be a male or female. So I wanted to make it more blank. And another option would be to just write the name of the person. But then again, I wanted a blank, so I can't have the name all the time. So with the idea of having a more regal text and a more period text, I added Juan Fiel Súdito, a faithful subject, instead of him and her. That way it sounded more period, it sounded more regal, and it would be a phrase that would perfectly be from a text given by a noble. Then, and I verified every single one of the words in the dictionary, in the dictionaries, both actually, and they were fine. The only difference was that it doesn't have an accent. And the next example, the next entry, 10.4, would be the name of the order, Astrum Australis, which is start of the sun. That's the name of the text of the award, and I wanted to keep it in Latin. The next entry would be, we hereby convey unto, and then the title and the name of the person. Mediante estas letras le transferimos a. Here I took another liberty. It's not that I took a lot of liberties, but mostly I wanted to talk about the liberties that I took. I used estas letras instead of hereby. I researched and I was able to document that it was actually used in documents that were given by nobles. So I wanted to use something again that would give the idea of a document given by a noble and a period. The next entry, to wit, Azure down. Okay, we're missing like 3 or 4 more entries. Else, inverted, or in chief, a compass star elongated to base argent, I'm sorry. Es decir, de azur con 2 pilas pontias invertidas de oro y en el jefe un cometa de plata. Okay, this was challenging because you need to translate from heraldry to English, then from English to Spanish, then from Spanish to heraldic Spanish, and then from heraldic Spanish to early modern heraldic Spanish. I think I was not successful with the very last part. I feel very confident about the translated it into Spanish, but I'm not sure if I was able to reproduce it to the early modern Spanish. Again, I verified every single word in the dictionary, and it is actually used, some of them in the context of heraldry, but I was not able to verify in context. Somebody would read it and tell me, yes, that's how you would say it in early modern Spanish. So in this case, I had to translate I had to be happy with being able to translate it into modern Spanish, because it's something that I have never translated before. I had never translated into heraldic Spanish. Okay, something important here is that the original translation for the compass start, the original translation was una estrella alargada con forma de rosa de los vientos. However, both Baron Bruce and Master Christopher suggested a more simplified version and preferred not to have a reference to the compass rose, since the badge does not show a full compass rose. You can see the badge over here at the top. The next example, I believe, is like two before the last. So that all may know of their service to our beloved Barony, para que todos se enteren de su dedicado servicio a nuestra amada baronía. Over here, I want to talk about two cases, two entries. Servicio. This is another liberty I took. The literal translation would be just servicio, service. See, notice that there is no qualifier in the English version. However, I added a qualifier in the Spanish version. I felt that that adjective needed to be there, or any adjective. I needed an adjective because it felt like it was missing something. In Spanish, you don't just talk about somebody's service. You talk about the dedicated service or the nice service or the good service, but not just service. So I added dedicated. And I think that it did not affect the meaning. That's the main purpose in translation. You do not want to mess with it. Then I also wanted to talk about amada baronía. In Spanish, we have the order of the adjective can be before the noun or after the noun. Over here, I chose before the noun because it makes it more poetic and more in tune with the type of text that I was translating. Number 17.1, this day of Anno Societatis being blank in the Gregorian. Over here, what I want to talk about is the Anno Societatis, number 1, number 2, calendario, and number 3, the month. Anno Societatis, I kept it because it's in Latin, so anything that was in Latin, the two things that were in Latin, I kept, simply because it totally goes with the text. Then I wrote the spelling of calendario is totally different. It's in modern Spanish, it's with a C and without the accent. And again, I verified the spelling, and it was with a C, with a K, and with the accent. And I verified that in both dictionaries, I think. No, on the Diccionario de Autoridades. And then the month, something that I was not aware is that before the months were capitalized, not now. Actually, now everybody's very people are changing now because we're using more English, and they're replicating the English rule that you capitalize the month. However, in Spanish, you do not capitalize the month in modern Spanish. What I found out is that in early modern Spanish, you do capitalize the month, as I found out in the dictionaries. So in the translation, I put a list of all the months of the year in Spanish, so that if they use it ever as a blank, they know what month to write. Okay. So this, for my conclusions, this was an extremely challenging project for me. As I said before, I am a professional translator. Spanish is my native language, and I thought that it was going to be super easy. However, I was I was shocked with the challenge because I had never translated into early modern Spanish. I, as I said before, I translate right now legal documents and scientific documents. So I started the project thinking that it was going to be easy, honestly. And it took me weeks to search and to research, and so I was pleasantly surprised that I learned as much as I learned. Um, my focus was mainly lexemes. Unfortunately, I could not verify a lot of the structures. I wrote an email to the Real Academia Española, to the entity that I told you about before, and they told me that they don't do that because I wanted somebody to read my translation and tell me if my choices had been correct or appropriate. And but no, but they wrote back and say they didn't do that. And then I wrote messages to several of the CA groups, and I couldn't find anybody to read the translation just to give me feedback what they thought about. And so pretty much I had to base my decisions on my research. The heraldic part was an added challenge. Thank God I had two people to help me. First, understand the English, and second, to give me pointers as to what to look for in the materials that I could look for. And if you want the references, they are in the paper, and I will post that link. So now that we have read some of the entries, I'm going to read the translation. Greetings to all, and singular from the Baron and Baroness of the Citadel of the Southern Pass, Tariq and Elieth. Whereas it has come to our attention that el barón y la baronesa de la Ciudadela del Paso Sud, Tariq y Elieth, os saludan. Por ende advertimos que vuesa merced, blank, has through his diverse efforts given great and excellent service to the barony and populace of the Citadel of the Southern Pass. It is our pleasure to admit him to the order of the Astromostrales. Mediante vuestros diversos esfuerzos ha ofrecido un servicio notable a la baronía de la Ciudadela del Paso Sud y sus habitantes. Nos complace admitir a cuán fiel súbdito a la orden del Astromostrales. We hereby convey unto blank the right to bear the badge of the order, to wit, azure, 2 piles inverted, or in chief a compass star elongated to base argent, so that all may know of their service to our beloved barony. Mediante estas letras le transferimos a blank el derecho de llevar la insignia de la orden, es decir, de azur con 2 pilas pontias invertidas de oro, en el jefe un cometa de plata, para que todos se enteren de su dedicado servicio a nuestra amada baronía. All this we do confirm by our hand this day of blank, Anna Societatis blank, being blank in the Gregorian. Confirmamos lo que procede con nuestra firma este día del mes de blank, Anno Societatis blank, según el calendario gregoriano. And again, we have the translation and the actual scroll here. That's my email if you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.